Eleanor Matthews sat in the sterile confines of Dr. Whitaker's office, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The smell of antiseptic hung in the air, mingling with the faint scent of fresh flowers on the doctor's desk. Her heart pounded as she met the doctor's somber gaze. "I'm afraid the prognosis isn't good, Mrs. Matthews," Dr. Whitaker said gently. "You have an aggressive form of cancer. At most, you have a year to live." The words echoed in her mind, leaving her numb. Eleanor's world, once filled with grand parties, business meetings, and the hustle of maintaining her vast estate, now felt unbearably small. She managed a nod, unable to muster words. The drive back to her mansion was a blur. Once inside, the vast, empty rooms seemed to mock her with their silence. Desperation clawed at her as she picked up the phone and dialed her son's number. "Jason, it's me," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." There was a pause before Jason's voice came through, clipped and impatient. "I'm in the middle of a meeting, Mother. Can this wait?" Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes. "No, it can't. I don't have much time left. The doctor says I have a year." Another pause, longer this time. "I'm sorry to hear that," Jason finally said, his tone devoid of warmth. "But I'm really busy right now. We'll talk later, okay?" The line went dead, leaving Eleanor holding the phone in stunned silence. She sank into the nearest chair, her heart breaking. Her only son, the center of her world, had abandoned her in her moment of greatest need. The days that followed were a haze of loneliness and despair. Eleanor roamed her mansion, its opulence now a stark reminder of her isolation. The once comforting trappings of wealth felt like a prison. Desperate for human connection, Eleanor turned to the only place she could think of. One Sunday morning, she dressed carefully, as if donning armor, and drove to the local church. She had passed by it countless times but had never felt the urge to enter. The church was modest, its white steeple reaching toward the sky. Inside, the pews were filled with townspeople, their faces serene and welcoming. Eleanor slipped into a back pew, hoping to remain unnoticed. As the service began, she felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. Pastor Samuel's voice was soothing, his words of hope and faith resonating deep within her. When the service ended, she lingered, unsure of what to do next. Pastor Samuel approached her, his eyes kind. "I don't believe we've met."
"I'm Pastor Samuel."
"Is this your first time here?" Eleanor nodded, tears threatening to spill. "Yes, it is."
"I'm Eleanor Matthews."
"Welcome, Mrs. Matthews. We're glad to have you here. If there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to ask." His words, simple yet sincere, touched Eleanor's heart. For the first time since her diagnosis, she felt a glimmer of hope. Eleanor found herself drawn back to the church again and again. Each visit brought a sense of solace she hadn't felt in years. Pastor Samuel's sermons spoke to her soul, and the warmth of the community began to thaw the ice around her heart. One Sunday, after the service, she approached Pastor Samuel. "Thank you for your kindness. I've been going through a difficult time, and this place has been a refuge." Pastor Samuel smiled. "We're here for you, Eleanor. If you ever need to talk, my door is always open." Eleanor nodded, grateful for his support. As she left the church, she realized that she had found a new source of strength. The once daunting prospect of her illness seemed more bearable with the church community by her side. As weeks turned into months, Eleanor developed a routine. She attended church services regularly, volunteered for community outreach programs, and formed new friendships. One of these friendships was with Sarah Thompson, a young woman dedicated to helping the less fortunate. "Mrs. Matthews, would you like to help with our food drive this weekend?" Sarah asked one day. Eleanor hesitated, then nodded. "I'd love to." Working alongside Sarah and other volunteers, Eleanor felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had spent so much of her life focused on her wealth and status, But now, helping others brought her a deeper satisfaction. Inspired by the church's work, Eleanor decided to make her first significant donation. She called Pastor Samuel and arranged a meeting. "Pastor, I want to help more," she said, handing him a check. "Use this for whatever the church needs." Pastor Samuel's eyes widened as he looked at the amount. "Eleanor, this is incredibly generous." "Thank you." Eleanor smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't experienced in a long time. "It's the least I can do. I want to make a difference." Her donation sparked a wave of enthusiasm within the community. The church was able to expand its outreach programs, providing food, shelter, and support to those in need. Eleanor's actions began to transform Willowbrook, turning it into a beacon of hope and faith. One afternoon, Jason arrived unannounced at Eleanor's mansion. His face was tight with anger. "Mother, what are you doing?" he demanded. "I hear you've been giving away our money to the church." Eleanor stood her ground, her voice calm. "It's my money, Jason. And it's not just going to the church. It's helping people in need." Jason's eyes flashed with frustration. "But what about our family's legacy? What about me?" Eleanor's heart ached, but she spoke firmly. "Jason, there are more important things in life than money. I've found peace and purpose in helping others. I wish you could understand that." Jason stormed out, leaving Eleanor feeling both saddened and resolved. She knew she couldn't change him, but she could continue on her path. That night, Eleanor sat in her bedroom, reflecting on her journey. Her health was declining, but her spirit felt stronger than ever. She picked up a pen and began writing a letter to Jason, pouring her heart into the words. "My dearest Jason," she wrote, "I hope one day you will understand the choices I've made. I'm leaving you something far more valuable than money, a legacy of love, faith, and compassion." She placed the letter in her Bible, knowing it would be her final gift to him. With a sense of peace, she closed her eyes, ready to face whatever came next. The following Sunday, Eleanor attended church, feeling a deep sense of contentment. Pastor Samuel's sermon about the fleeting nature of material wealth resonated deeply with her. She decided to meet with her lawyer the next day to finalize her will, ensuring that her legacy would continue to make a difference long after she was gone. Eleanor sat in the plush leather chair of Mr. Thompson's office, a manila folder clutched in her hands. The room was lined with dark wood bookshelves, filled with legal volumes that seemed to tower over her. Mr. Thompson, a gray-haired man with a kind face, adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. "What can I do for you today, Mrs. Matthews?" he asked. Eleanor took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I need to finalize my will. There have been some changes." Mr. Thompson nodded, understanding the gravity of her request. They went over the details, line by line. Eleanor explained her decision to leave the majority of her estate to the church and community projects, ensuring her wealth would continue to help others long after she was gone. "And what about your son?" Mr. Thompson asked gently. Eleanor hesitated, then pulled out the Bible she had prepared for Jason, placing it on the desk. "I'm leaving him this, along with a letter I've written. It's my hope that he will find value in it beyond material wealth." Mr. Thompson nodded solemnly, understanding the depth of her decision. "I'll make sure everything is in order." As Eleanor left the office, she felt a mixture of sadness and resolve. She had taken the first step in ensuring her legacy would reflect her newfound values. Eleanor's days were now filled with purpose. She increased her involvement in church activities and community outreach, finding joy in every moment. She organized fundraisers, helped distribute food at the local shelter, and even started a program to help young mothers in need. One afternoon, while helping to set up for a community event, she saw Pastor Samuel approaching. "Eleanor, I just wanted to thank you again for everything you're doing," he said, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Your generosity is making a real difference." Eleanor smiled warmly. "It's not just me, Pastor. It's everyone here. We're a community, and together we can do great things." Her words were sincere, and they resonated deeply with those around her. Eleanor's actions were inspiring others to contribute as well, creating a ripple effect of kindness and generosity throughout Willowbrook. Meanwhile, in the bustling city, Jason sat in his high-rise office, staring at his phone. His lawyer had just informed him of the significant donations his mother had been making. Concerned about his inheritance, he decided to visit her. That evening, he drove to Willowbrook, his mind racing with thoughts of his future and the family legacy. He arrived at the mansion, feeling a mix of anger and confusion. Eleanor greeted him at the door, her face lighting up with a smile that quickly faded when she saw his expression. "Jason, what brings you here?" she asked, trying to mask her concern. "We need to talk," Jason said, stepping inside. "I hear you've been giving away a lot of money. What's going on?" Eleanor led him to the living room, where they sat down. She took a deep breath, preparing to explain her actions. "Jason, I've been using my wealth to help others. It's brought me a sense of peace and fulfillment that I never found in material things." Jason's eyes narrowed. "But what about our family's legacy? What about my future?" Eleanor reached out to touch his hand, but he pulled away. "Our legacy isn't just about money, Jason. It's about the impact we have on others. I want you to understand that." Jason shook his head, frustration evident in his eyes. "I don't get it, Mother. I really don't." He left shortly after, leaving Eleanor with a heavy heart. She knew it would take time for Jason to understand, but she hoped that one day he would see the value in what she was doing. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as Eleanor continued her work with the church. One evening, after a particularly busy day, she sat down with Pastor Samuel to discuss her plans. "Pastor, I've been thinking a lot about my legacy," she began. "I want to make sure that everything I've worked for continues to benefit the community." Pastor Samuel nodded, his eyes filled with empathy. "You're doing an incredible thing, Eleanor. Your actions are touching so many lives." Eleanor sighed, feeling the weight of her decisions. "I just wish Jason could see that. He's so focused on material wealth that he's missing the bigger picture." "Give him time," Pastor Samuel said gently. "Sometimes it takes a while for people to understand the true value of things." Eleanor nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. She knew she was doing the right thing, even if Jason didn't see it yet. As the weeks passed, Eleanor's health began to deteriorate more rapidly. The once minor symptoms of her illness became more pronounced, and she found herself growing weaker. Despite this, she remained determined to continue her work. One afternoon, while volunteering at the food drive, she collapsed. Sarah Thompson rushed to her side, helping her to a nearby chair. "Eleanor, you need to rest," Sarah said, her voice filled with concern. "You're pushing yourself too hard." Eleanor shook her head weakly. "There's still so much to do, Sarah. I can't stop now." Sarah looked at her with tears in her eyes. "You've done so much already. Let us take care of you for a change." Eleanor nodded reluctantly, realizing she needed to conserve her strength. She knew her time was limited, but she was determined to make every moment count. Word of Eleanor's condition spread quickly through the church community. People rallied around her, offering their support in any way they could. Meals were prepared, visits were made, and prayers were said. One evening, a group of church members gathered outside Eleanor's mansion, holding candles and singing hymns. Eleanor watched from her window, tears streaming down her face. She felt their love and support, and it gave her strength. Pastor Samuel visited her often, providing comfort and spiritual guidance. "You've touched so many lives, Eleanor. Your legacy will live on through the people you've helped." Eleanor smiled weakly, feeling a deep sense of peace. She knew she had made a difference, and that was all she had ever wanted. The following week, Eleanor finalized her will with Mr. Thompson present. She ensured that all her wishes were clearly outlined, leaving no room for confusion. She placed her letter to Jason inside the Bible, feeling a sense of closure. That Sunday, she attended church one last time. Pastor Samuel's sermon about the fleeting nature of material wealth resonated deeply with her. As she sat in the pew, surrounded by the community she had come to love, she felt a profound sense of contentment. Eleanor knew her time was near, but she was ready. She had lived a life of purpose and had left a legacy of love and compassion. As she walked out of the church, she felt a sense of peace, knowing that she had done everything she could to make a difference. With her will finalized and her heart at ease, Eleanor was prepared to face whatever came next. She knew her actions would continue to inspire and uplift the community long after she was gone. Eleanor's health declined rapidly over the following days. She spent most of her time in bed, surrounded by the few close friends she had made through the church. Her room, once a symbol of opulence, was now filled with warmth and love from the community she had embraced. One quiet evening, as the sun set over Willowbrook, Eleanor passed away peacefully in her sleep. Her face bore a serene expression, a reflection of the peace she had found in her final year. The news of her passing spread quickly through the town, leaving a profound sense of loss among those whose lives she had touched. A few days later, Jason found himself in Mr. Thompson's office once again, this time to hear the reading of his mother's will. The room was filled with an air of anticipation and tension. Jason sat with his arms crossed, his face a mask of impatience and worry. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat and began reading. "To my beloved son, Jason, I leave my Bible and a letter that I hope will guide him to understand the true value of life beyond material wealth. The remainder of my estate is to be donated to the Willowbrook Church and various community projects." Jason's face flushed with anger and disbelief. "A Bible? That's all she left me." Mr. Thompson handed him the Bible and the letter. "Your mother believed this was her greatest asset, Jason. She hoped you would come to see its true worth." Jason snatched the Bible and letter, his mind reeling. He stormed out of the office, feeling betrayed and confused. Back in his sleek modern apartment, Jason threw the Bible onto his pristine coffee table, glaring at it as if it were an enemy. He reluctantly opened the letter, his mother's familiar handwriting stirring a mix of emotions within him. "My dearest Jason, I know you may feel hurt and confused by my decision. Please understand that I did this out of love. This Bible holds the lessons and wisdom that brought me peace and purpose in my final days. I hope that one day you will open it and find the same solace and guidance that I did. With all my love, Mother." Jason crumpled the letter in frustration, but a nagging curiosity led him to open the Bible. As he flipped through the pages, he saw notes and reflections scribbled in the margins, each one a glimpse into his mother's heart and soul. As Jason read through the Bible, memories of his childhood flooded back. He remembered the times his mother had tried to teach him about compassion and faith, lessons he had dismissed in his pursuit of wealth. The more he read, the more he began to understand the depth of his mother's transformation. Flashbacks of moments with Eleanor filled his mind, her comforting hugs, her unwavering support, and her gentle guidance. Each memory tugged at his heart, making him realize how much he had taken her for granted. Driven by a newfound sense of guilt and curiosity, Jason decided to visit the Willowbrook Church. He entered hesitantly, feeling out of place among the familiar faces. Pastor Samuel spotted him and approached with a warm smile. "Jason, I'm glad you're here." "Your mother spoke of you often," Pastor Samuel said, his tone gentle. Jason nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "I'm not sure why I came. I guess I wanted to understand what was so important to her." "Stay for the service," Pastor Samuel offered. "Maybe it will help you find some answers." Jason sat in the back pew, listening to the sermon about love, forgiveness, and the true meaning of wealth. The words resonated with him in a way he hadn't expected, stirring something deep within his heart. After the service, Jason lingered, unsure of what to do next. Sarah Thompson approached him, her eyes filled with compassion. "Jason, I'm Sarah. I worked closely with your mother." "She was an incredible woman," Sarah said, extending her hand. Jason shook her hand, feeling a connection he hadn't felt in a long time. "She spoke highly of you, Sarah. I'm just trying to understand everything." Sarah smiled warmly. "Why don't you join us at the community center? I can show you the projects your mother supported and the impact she made." Jason agreed, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time. At the community center, he saw firsthand the lives his mother had touched. The children's laughter, the grateful smiles of the people she had helped, and the sense of community all began to shift his perspective. One evening, Jason found himself alone in his apartment, the Bible open on his lap. He read through his mother's notes again, her words guiding him through his own thoughts and feelings. He began to see the value in what she had left him, understanding that it wasn't about the material wealth she had given away but the spiritual wealth she had embraced. Jason made a decision. He would honor his mother's legacy by continuing her work and finding his own path to fulfillment and faith. The next morning, Jason visited Mr. Thompson's office once more, this time with a clear purpose. He wanted to transform his mother's mansion into a community center, ensuring her legacy would continue to thrive. He met with Sarah and Pastor Samuel, discussing plans and gathering support from the community. As they stood in the mansion's grand foyer, Jason felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew he was on the right path, ready to carry forward the values his mother had instilled in him. Eleanor's legacy was just beginning, and Jason was determined to make her proud. The decision to transform Eleanor's mansion into a community center filled Jason with a renewed sense of purpose. Early one morning, he met with Sarah and a group of volunteers in front of the grand estate. "We're ready to get started," Sarah said, her enthusiasm infectious. "This is going to be amazing, Jason." Jason nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "Let's do it. For my mother." The team began the monumental task of renovation, starting with clearing out the rooms and repurposing the space. Jason found himself working alongside the volunteers, feeling a connection with them and the work they were doing. As they stripped wallpaper, painted walls, and moved furniture, Jason realized that this transformation was as much about his own journey as it was about honoring his mother. As the renovation progressed, they encountered numerous challenges. Structural issues, budget constraints, and unexpected delays tested their resolve. One afternoon, as they were discussing these setbacks, Jason noticed the worried expressions on the faces of the volunteers. "We've come this far, and we're not giving up," Jason said, his voice firm. "We'll find a way to make this work." Pastor Samuel stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on Jason's shoulder. "You're right, Jason. We have faith, and we have each other. We'll get through this together." The community rallied, organizing fundraisers and donation drives to cover the additional costs. Jason was moved by their support, realizing that his mother's spirit of generosity had truly taken root in Willowbrook. Months of hard work culminated in the grand opening of the Eleanor Matthews Community Center. The mansion had been transformed into a vibrant hub of activity, with rooms dedicated to education, arts, and social services. On the day of the inauguration, the community gathered on the lawn, a palpable sense of excitement in the air. Jason stood at the front, feeling a mix of nervousness and pride. He took a deep breath and began his speech. "Thank you all for being here today," he started, his voice steady. "This community center is a testament to my mother's vision and the power of faith and generosity. She believed in the strength of this community, and I am honored to continue her legacy." The crowd erupted in applause, and Jason felt tears welling up in his eyes. As the ribbon was cut and the doors opened, the center came to life, filled with laughter, joy, and a sense of hope. Jason quickly integrated himself into the daily operations of the community center. He volunteered for various programs, working closely with Sarah and the other staff. He found a deep sense of fulfillment in helping others and seeing the positive impact of their work. One afternoon, while organizing a youth workshop, Jason overheard a group of children talking about their dreams and aspirations. Their words reminded him of his own journey and the importance of his mother's lessons. As he watched the children, he felt a profound sense of peace. He knew he was exactly where he was meant to be, carrying forward his mother's legacy and making a real difference in the lives of others. One evening, after a long day at the center, Jason sat in his apartment with the Bible his mother had left him. He flipped through the pages, reading her notes and reflecting on the journey he had undertaken. Her words of wisdom and faith had guided him through his darkest times, helping him find his true purpose. Jason closed the Bible and looked around his apartment, which now felt more like a home. He had come a long way from the ambitious, materialistic man he once was. His mother's final gift had transformed his life, and he was grateful for the path it had set him on. The Eleanor Matthews Community Center quickly became a cornerstone of Willowbrook. It offered a range of services, from educational programs to social support, touching countless lives. The community thrived, united by the spirit of generosity and faith that Eleanor had embodied. One sunny afternoon, Jason walked through the center, observing the bustling activities. He saw children playing, families gathering, and volunteers working tirelessly. A plaque dedicated to Eleanor's memory stood proudly at the entrance, a reminder of the lasting impact of her legacy. Jason continued to lead a life of service, working closely with Sarah and Pastor Samuel. He became an integral part of the community, always ready to lend a helping hand and offer support. His journey of transformation had come full circle, and he found joy in every moment. One evening, as he and Sarah walked through the town, she turned to him with a smile. "Your mother would be so proud of you, Jason." Jason nodded, feeling a warmth in his heart. "I hope so. Everything I do is to honor her memory and the lessons she taught me." The novel closes with a scene of children playing and families gathering at the community center. Jason stands by the plaque dedicated to his mother, a smile on his face as he watches the vibrant life around him. He feels her presence and knows that her legacy lives on in the hearts and lives of those she touched. Eleanor's last gift had been far more valuable than any material wealth. It had given Jason and the community a sense of purpose, faith, and love that would endure for generations. The center, now a symbol of hope and transformation, was a testament to the true value of a life lived with compassion and faith.